Well, welcome everyone to another in the DEPA series of visiting with some of our board members, and in particular, one of our collaborating state associations from North Dakota. We've got Ron Ness, who is the president of the North Dakota Petroleum Council. Ron has been in that position since 1999. He is the chief cook and bottle washer from looking at his bio here, as you can imagine. And I believe he told us as he sat down, and I teased him for having a tie on. He just came from the Capitol. He's got a battle on his hands. So all of the state association folks know that when the legislature's in session, what's going on. So we appreciate some of Ron's time here. A couple other things about him that some people might not know is that Governors Schaefer, Hooven, Dalrymple, Bergman have all appointed Ron as the official representative to the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission, the Oil and Gas Research Council, Empower North Dakota Commission, and the Governor's Revenue Advisory Committee. He also serves on the board of the Stanford Health Bismarck. He is chairman of the board of the Energy Environmental Research Centers Foundation. And he also serves on the board of regents of University of Mary. I mean, well-rounded guy, and there's a whole lot more on his bio that I'm sure you can find on their website, or we'd be happy to send it to you if you want to know more about Ron. But with that, we're going to get into this. And Ron, what I'll do is I'll ask you a few questions and we'll kind of talk back and forth. But I always start out by saying, is there anything you'd like to say to start off with? Any kind of statements coming out of North Dakota right now? Anything that maybe in particular is on your mind, or any questions you might have?
Well, Jerry, first of all, thanks for having me, and we greatly appreciate the work that you and DEPA do, and we're glad to be affiliated with DEPA. You know, yesterday was the 1-year anniversary of kind of the COVID pandemic start, and I did a number of interviews talking about how that last year, what happened in that last year, and it is just truly remarkable. And I think we're all going to look back at this and wonder, did we lose a year of our lives completely? In the oil and gas industry, a year ago, going into today or yesterday, we were feeling really good about everything in the Bakken. We had come through the downturn of 2014, 15. I thought we came out of that downturn just amazing. Our producers, midstream industry, everybody, you know, they came into that 2014, 15, you know, running pretty fat and pretty heavy, and costs were high. And I was just so amazed at what this industry did in terms of, you know, letting the accountants do what accountants do and letting the engineers do what engineers do. We made the Bakken more economic. We made it more efficient. We were operating a lower price threshold than ever before. But boy, not down into the zero digits and negative categories. But we were producing about 1.5 million barrels a day in the Bakken in North Dakota. 55 drilling rigs, 25 completion crews, capitalization of about $20 million a day across North Dakota and the Bakken. Things were humming right along, but most partly we had become so much more from a standpoint of Wall Street and attracting investment here. I thought we were running, you know, par to par with the Permian, and or better in some situations. Boy, what a difference a few months makes. But a year, what we have proven is that producers are resilient. Our industry is resilient. Today we're running at 15 drilling rigs, 7 frac crews. We've probably got 10 to 15,000 employees, fewer employees working in the industry, but we're producing almost 1.2 million barrels a day and almost 3 BCF of gas in North Dakota. So that's good for North Dakota. It's good for our industry. It still takes tens of thousands of people to do that. We're rolling out some numbers next week in terms of our economic impact studies. This is a tough year. The state of North Dakota did some amazing things to help us. Initiated a $33 million well plugging program where we cleaned up almost 350 old abandoned wells, made those old fields, I think, now viable going forward, so helped the service sector. Did a duck well incentive program to essentially complete ducks. As it turned out, that really stabilized our state budget, and I think it stabilized our oil production. So, you know, you learn a lot, and at the end of the day, just keep going. That's what this industry does.
Let me ask you a follow-on question on the ducks. First of all, if you would explain what a duck is. And I know, a year or so ago, I think there were quite a few in North Dakota. And over the course of the COVID year, has that number changed? And if yes or no, what does that look like going forward?
Well, I'm an outdoorsman, so we are the duck factory of North America here in North Dakota. But the ducks that I'm referring to are the drilled and uncompleted wells. So that essentially means that a producer has brought in a drilling rig, drilled the well down 2 miles, out 2 miles, and then essentially walked away and did not bring in the completion crew that does the big technology that made all of this possible with the, not only the horizontal extended reach of the drilling of the well, which is probably the biggest key, but of course the completion techniques that we've really revolutionized. Much of that we think was pioneered in North Dakota, but now it's across the country and across the world and how we complete these wells. So those are the wells, and you get an inventory of those, and it grows. And as producers want to carry a bunch of them, just like you want to carry a surplus or a savings account in your checking book, producers want to run those so you can run your operations efficiently. But when you stop drilling, of course, you've got all these ducks sitting out there, hundreds of millions of dollars of drilled and uncompleted wells. If you go after those, you can stimulate jobs and stimulate production, and that's what our state industrial commission did, our top regulators.
Okay. Another issue that I think you may have something to talk about is everyone recently, after the first day of the Biden administration, knew all of a sudden about Keystone XL again. And it's been coming and going through the news for several years now. And I know that was once upon a time, actually back when DEPA was first formed, it was one of our issues about whether we were for or against the Keystone XL. And with the Biden administration halting the cross border with Canada access to Keystone XL, do you guys in North Dakota have anything to say about that? And in concert with that, again, something everybody in the country knew about a couple of years ago was the Dakota Access Pipeline, DAPL. And where's that these days? I mean, it's kind of fallen off the national radar, it seems like, which maybe is a good thing for you guys. But I don't know, is there some more threat there with a Biden administration and what's going on?
Jerry, these are two huge issues for us, obviously, and our transportation issues go back to the early 2000s. Frankly, when we were producing less than 100,000 barrels a day in North Dakota, our Canadian oil was flooding into our markets, and of course the refiners across the Midwest and the upper Midwest had all converted to heavy sour Canadian crude, and our barrel in North Dakota was being not only discounted, it was, frankly, we couldn't get it to market. So we have the original Keystone pipeline that comes through eastern North Dakota. Keystone XL actually comes through Montana, around North Dakota, through a little bit of Wyoming and in through South Dakota on its way down. And at one point, the state of Montana, with the help of DEPA members and others, mandated that Keystone XL be required to take up to 100,000 barrels a day of Bakken oil in order to get a permit in the state of Montana. That was back when 100,000 barrels was a really super big deal to us in the Bakken. We were probably producing 300,000 or 250,000. Today, at 1.2 to 1.5 million barrels a day, 100,000 barrels of oil isn't that big a deal. And our state's top regulator and I wrote a paper in 2005 basically saying that it makes no sense to put oil on rail. It will never be done. Of course, about 6 years later, EOG Resources put up the first oil by rail crude oil terminal in North Dakota. I think we ended up with 27 crude by rail terminals. In 2014, we were moving 750,000 barrels a day of Bakken crude oil across North America because it's a high quality, rich, valuable crude oil that the world wants, and the world had kind of been awoken to the great value of shale oil in America. So we were probably a little bit wrong in 2005 because the reality is when the market demands it, you can move it. So now you've got the Dakota Access Pipeline, 570,000 barrels of North Dakota high quality Bakken oil going through that pipeline every single day for the last 3.5 years, safely, soundly, at high quality oil to the best market for that oil to the Louisiana Gulf Coast, directly displacing 570,000 barrels of Libya crude, OPEC crude, crude from not our friends and allies with homemade American oil. And that pipeline is scheduled to be expanded and optimized up to 1.2 million barrels a day, which would be in place had we not seen some of these, just horrible decisions by district court judges in Washington, D.C. that basically, put the brakes on the expansion, but also now have the Dakota Access Pipeline itself in question. The big date we're watching today is April 9th. That is the date in which the judge in the D.C. District Court has indicated he's going to rule whether the environmental impact statement can continue without DAPL being shut down. Of course, you say it's been quiet. We don't think it's been very quiet. Unfortunately, when the obstructionists, the anti-fossil fuel crowd was done getting Keystone XL blocked, then they went to the Enbridge pipelines in Minnesota and Michigan. They were unsuccessful there in stopping a multi-year, probably 7 to 10 year battle there in terms of just upgrading, adding new pipe to those lines. So now their focus, along with the movie stars and all the other glamorites, has moved to DAPL. And we're very concerned, of course, what will happen if that pipeline is shut in. But there's absolutely that pipeline, first of all, does not run on the Standing Rock Indian Reservation. It's 8 miles north of that reservation. That tribe never objected to any of the permits. The environmental assessment, which was done, one of the most significant EAs ever done in terms of content and quality, was done by the Corps of Engineers under the Obama administration. President Trump authorized the final permit, if you recall, on his first day in office. But, that pipeline runs 92 feet beneath the bedrock of the river. The same pipeline runs underneath the river west of Williston, North Dakota, in the northwestern part of the state in the oil patch, right upstream of their water supply. So it's never been about safety, Jerry. It's never been about anything. It's been about stopping American oil from getting to market in hopes of keeping the oil in the ground from our opponents and those who don't like fossil fuels in this country.
Oh, you're absolutely right, Ron. It's one of those tactics you could see it coming as they move from the anti-fracking dialogue into, well, how else can we prevent oil and gas production? Well, let's go to the infrastructure, and that's exactly what they did. Now they're going to the financial markets with the whole ESG stuff and all that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Let me kind of shift gears a little bit here on some of the national issues. Yes, sir.
One more. Everybody remembers the DAPL protest.
Oh, absolutely.
Representative Deb Haaland. I'm not sure, has she been confirmed as the new Secretary of Interior yet or not? I don't think so.
I think so, yeah.
Unfortunately, she was at DAPL with a cook stove in her trunk, illegally camping and protesting on public land.
Right.
And they left a $9 million environmental disaster there for the state of North Dakota to clean up.
That's exactly right. And again,
that's who our new Secretary of Interior is.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, well, and again, one of those things a lot of people didn't pay attention to or have forgotten is the damage that occurred from those people being these green environmentalists that were out there protesting the dirty oil and gas industry, and the mess they made was incredible. So and left the citizens of North Dakota to clean it up. Yeah. So anyway, I was going to shift gears onto some national issues, and again, that turned into a national issue, though, like I said, at least for us, living in other parts of the country, it's kind of fallen off of our radar screen just because it's not being reported right now, but I have a feeling it's going to come back around, as you said. But we do know some other things that have happened since Biden's inauguration. The moratorium on federal lands. I know North Dakota's got some significant federal lands. And what do you think about that? The impact that might be having on the industry, and maybe not even like today and what it looks like in the last 2 months since the original moratorium. But now we have DOI has just come out toward the end of this month. They're going to have a day-long seminar where they're going to talk about how they do everything on federal lands and leasing, and they're going to look at royalty rates and how they issue permits. And one of the statements, and this was before a new Secretary of Interior, and the undersecretary that was making the statement said, the American people aren't being served well by the way we're allowing oil and gas to be produced on federal lands. And you look at the money that goes to the Treasury and you kind of scratch your head and say, seriously? But anyway, so do you have thoughts on that and how that impacts the industry and you guys in North Dakota?
Well, Jerry, certainly we do. I think, first of all, we really need to thank the Biden administration. What's oil gone up $20, and he's been in office for 55 days or so, and oil's gone up $20, and consumers across this country are paying 30 to 40 cents more per gallon for gasoline. So we appreciate their efforts in that regard. But public lands in North Dakota are obviously we've got a fair amount of public surface, grasslands types, but so much of our public land in North Dakota is maybe federal wildlife sloughs and waterways and things like that, where the federal minerals, they own the federal minerals underneath private lands. And that's no different than being on public land with private minerals or federal minerals. If you penetrate those federal minerals, you have to have a federal permit, even if it's 10 acres of a 1,280 acre spacing unit. So there's a significant impact in North Dakota, and certainly not only that, but crossing federal lands for things like gas pipelines, which reduce flaring, pipelines which take trucks off the road, which improve the emissions of the industry as a whole. But kind of the big shocker in all of that for us is about half of the federal lands are actually federal lands owned in trust on the benefit of the tribal nations of North Dakota. And the 3 affiliated tribes in North Dakota produces about 325,000 barrels of Bakken oil a day. 60% of that, by the way, goes on to the Dakota Access Pipeline, which then transcends through the Standing Rock Indian Reservation, who's the leader to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline. But 60% of it is of the tribal, which drives their entire economy, goes on that pipeline. But they exempted the tribal lands, as you know, and gave the kind of just a broad brushed exemption to all tribal lands, which from a standpoint of North Dakota and the Bakken, it saved us from an industry standpoint. Probably a half or more of the federal impacts were taken away, and that is a extremely geological rich area of the Bakken. So I had a very significant benefit to the producers who are operating on tribal lands. Kind of a head shaker to most of us in the regulatory business and the environmental mindset of this whole concept of. But for them to get that exemption, good for them, good for us. So we're very concerned about the tribal land, the federal lands ban, and the decisions and how it's going to slow things. Yeah, we've got a lot of permits in the hopper probably, but you're beginning to see companies already space around federal minerals, which absolutely just makes no sense. All we're doing is sending less money to the federal government because you're not spacing. And that begins to cause problems for private mineral owners and private landowners and the operators. So in addition to the substantial, private surface, federal surface that we have, federal minerals under federal surface, but really the impact goes directly to the local political subdivisions in which those minerals lie, get a substantial royalty on their federal minerals back to the local counties, cities, schools, state of North Dakota. That is a super big deal, and the number in North Dakota is a pretty big number, and just lost money in terms. We've been producing oil and gas on federal land since 1954, 3 years after we discovered oil in North Dakota. We can do it right. We have done it right. All these decisions getting pushed up to Washington just makes absolutely no sense. So who knows what's next, right? After they reassess what a great job they've been doing, they may decide that they don't want to do such a great job up in the North Dakota federal lands, and they make it worse.
Right, right. Well, I'm going to kind of again shift gears into what is a local issue for you guys in North Dakota, but it's also a Permian issue, and it's particular to these wonderful resource plays that we have in the Permian and in North Dakota and the Bakken, and it's the associated methane, the natural gas that is truly a byproduct of producing all of that wonderful light crude. And there's been all kinds of arguments, and I know again in the state legislature and you guys and industry and everybody involved about what to do with that gas. Do we flare it? Do we vent it? If we can't get a pipeline, if we can't get some gathering lines to sell it, what are our options? And so just where does that stand right now in North Dakota? And like I said, I know it's huge in the Permian as well.
Well, Jerry, I think this has been probably the most challenging issue I've had over the last decade. And number one, nobody wants to flare that gas. Nobody wants to do anything but get that gas to market and get some royalty for it and get some revenue for it. And many of our legislative squabbles now are over the cost of getting that gas to market and how and who pays for it, especially when the gas has little or no value, and the producer sometimes has to essentially pay to have someone take your gas, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to produce your oil. I think we are the poster child for this issue, both good, bad, and now in the new phase. We've had people from all over the world here bring solutions, ideas. We've had the Iraqi oil minister here looking at the solutions that we've developed. The good news is, the bad news is we were flaring a tremendous amount of gas. The good news today, after spending $20 billion, we are at 94% gas capture. And when you look at full gas capture in a shale play, as you described, I think somewhere around 95 to 96% is full runtime. And any refinery or any machine is only going to run, there's got to be downtime and got to be time to reset. But we're doing a great job. We've got a bill that's passed the Senate, passed the House, that's going to create a producer incentive to put remote capture technologies on for the additional flares, the flares that are either stranded or completely in maybe remote areas. We've got federal lands, tribal lands. We've got a huge, one of the largest man-made lakes in North America up here. So we got a lot of obstacles. Just sometimes it's hard to get around. They're hard to get a pipeline to them. But we also want to add value to this gas. We want to, we're looking at everything from studies of storage caverns, a petrochemical industry here, turning this ethane and natural gas now into power to power our grid. We are large consumers of electricity. Of course, we prefer to have our electricity in North Dakota very reliable, very sustainable, and here every day, all the time. Unlike you guys in Oklahoma and Texas, but frankly, we're facing the same challenges. And our power in the Bakken got shut down actually as the SPP power pool routed power to Oklahoma. So we lost power that week as well. But frankly, it feels good because we have begged and begged regulators and others to work with us and let us build our way out of this. You cannot just stop because you stop the momentum. You've got to allow yourself to produce the well to know how much gas is going to be produced. And at the end of the day, you've got to be able to build and right-size the infrastructure. We've rebuilt because the Bakken just keeps getting better. And along with more oil, of course, comes more gas. So I think we're in a good spot right now. But we know we've got to do more. We've got to be able to attract more investment, and you have to keep building that infrastructure. So the challenges that we may be presented by the new administration. I think we're doing a much better job, and we've got our infrastructure in place for today. We know we have to do more. We're going to do a lot more to try and reduce every emission possible, and we've got some legislation I can talk about later in regards to that. But I'm feeling pretty good about where we are. After a decade of not feeling so good, I can stand here today and be pretty proud of what this industry, along with our midstream partners, have accomplished in North Dakota's Bakken in terms of capturing natural gas.
Okay, good. Okay, well, as you just mentioned, maybe that's the next question that I'll ask you then. are there some specific legislative efforts in North Dakota right now at your legislature, hence the coat and tie that you might want to talk about here as we're kind of starting to wrap things up?
Well, we're facing a challenge here with the wind and the coal industry, not unlike other places. We've had a tremendous amount of wind come online. We've got an 800-year supply of coal in North Dakota. We're beginning to see baseload power shut off. Our largest coal-fired power generation plant is scheduled to be shut down in 2022. So it's created quite a stir amongst North Dakotans. And from a Bakken standpoint, we not only need that power, we want to see them successful in the storage, the capture and the storage of carbon dioxide, because we think that's the next great potential in the Bakken, to use the Bakken's rich gas along with CO2 to energize the field again. So along with really all the energy sectors, we've got a bill. It's House Bill 1452. It's passed the Senate. It's passed the House. It's now in the Senate, and that bill is going to create an investment program into clean, sustainable energy. And it's going to be amended next week to say clean, sustainable, reliable energy. Because I don't think the other side owns clean and sustainable. They certainly don't own sustainable, and they don't own clean. We think we can make a Bakken barrel clean, as cleaner than anyone else in the world. And as a state, the state of North Dakota is going to put $40 million of biennium into research to advance technologies, commercialize concepts and ideas that can make our barrel cleaner and market it to the world as a cleaner Bakken barrel, reduced emissions, reduced environmental footprint, utilizing CO2, all the great ideas that may come forth in this industry. There'll be an investment partner now called the state of North Dakota to be here to try and advance the great technologies of the future. And we all may have different opinions on climate, but the two things that we've certainly seen that have changed the game here is the investment market and the need for our companies to just do more and always be out fighting in terms of reducing emissions and getting better at what we do. But secondly, it's the fact of the matter is that the next generation wants a cleaner version of what we produce. That's what that bill's about. I think it's going to sweep the nation, actually. It's a revolutionary idea by the state of North Dakota to reinvest back into the oil and gas industry and the coal industry. We're not leaving behind the ethanol industry, the wind, the solar, and others. Bring their ideas as well.
You had mentioned earlier that next week you guys have some economic studies that are going to come out, and I'm not necessarily trying to get a scoop or anything, but if there's any information there that you might want to share here, but also kind of maybe roll that in as closing comments here on the Bakken and the Bakken's role in energy and not just America's energy independence, but what actually in the Bakken, so everybody knows, the Bakken was ahead of the Permian as far as the shale play goes. And it changed the world, honest to God. What was going on in North Dakota a few years ago changed the world. And we in this business all know that and what happened. But if you want to talk a little about your economic studies that are coming out, and I don't know what they're about, but also the Bakken and its kind of past, present, and what you guys see maybe as the future.
Thanks, Jerry. Fortunately, we did our first economic impact study in 2005. North Dakota was producing 83,000 barrels a day, probably generating $75 million of biennium in tax revenues. I employed somewhere around 3,000, about 5,000 employees, 3,000 tired old oil wells. So it's great to have this chart, right? Today we represent more than 50% of all the taxes paid in the state of North Dakota come just from oil and gas production taxes, somewhere short of $3 billion in 2019. We employ 17% of the state's workforce, just an absolute $40 billion industry in the state. And what this study shows is that we are a resilient industry, despite all of the things that have happened over the past 15 years. The boom of the Bakken, the great crash, which we thought 2014, 2015 was pretty devastating. The study doesn't quite go into what happened in the COVID year, but we can see it's going to be about half of where we were probably. But it shows us that at the end of the day, you bring in a lot of activity during a boom. You bring in a lot of transient workers. You bring in this flush capital. You bring in everything. But for a standpoint of communities, and it's just what we've always said. Every new oil well that goes on the landscape, it's like a storefront. That storefront's going to need people to wake up every morning and put that store to work. You're going to have to move that oil, move that gas, move that produced water, pipelines, refineries, gas plants, storefronts, coffee shops, everything, right? So what we've shown is that population of the communities have stabilized, school enrollments, even through downturns now, because the wells continue to produce, continue to maintain and support viably economically and strong communities, strong tax base for our state, strong opportunities for the future for our young people. That's what this study is going to show. And obviously tremendous wealth generation, but not only that, but tremendous things back to the entire state in terms of water projects, property tax relief, education, you name it, infrastructure. We've created an outdoor heritage fund that invests in conservation and wildlife. We've got a $7 billion legacy fund that now the arguments and the fights are going on at the Capitol. What do you do with the $700 million of earnings that's going to kick off every biennium going forward? So, the fight is on how to spend the money. So that's what the study is going to show, is that there's tremendous value for states who advance and responsibly develop their oil and gas resources. And I think that is going to be part of our critical argument as we move forward at a very challenging period in this country for our industry, and as consumers look at making choices and determining where do they want to see their energy come from, and the value of that energy and the cost of that energy and what it means to all of us. Do we want to subsidize our way through an energy future, or do we want to create new wealth, new opportunities, new jobs, utilizing the great technology and the bright minds that we have? So it's where we're at.
Yeah, that's great. And the problem with those subsidies is sooner or later, those of us paying for them either run out of money or we get tired of it. So that's the thing. Hey, Ron, anything, final comments or anything like that before we close out? We've gone a little over 30 minutes here. It's been great. Anything you would like to wind up with?
Yeah, absolutely. We are proud to be announcing that we are having the Williston-based Petroleum Conference, May 11th to 13th of this year. First big live event, probably the first big live event really across many states, but North Dakota is open and ready for business. So Bismarck, North Dakota, we have got just an incredible lineup of presenters coming, and it's always a good show. Jerry, you've been there for it, but we're going to have a virtual option. We'd love to make that available for people to check in, but we bring all the great technologies. We bring the great speakers, the CEOs, but more importantly, this is, it's a trade show, it's a business development opportunity, but the technologies we're going to talk about, all the things we've talked about today, smarter pipelines, how to reduce, eliminate leaks, gas capture, Bakken EOR, how to advanced drilling solutions, advanced surface solutions, reducing emissions, the things that we think are important going forward. Everybody's welcome, and we'd be more than happy to provide that link out, Jerry, for people to participate in that event. Well, we hope you come.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'd love to, and you're right. I've been there before, and it's a great event. Hey, thank you so much, Ron. It's great it's always fun. I did one of these with Ed Cross the other day, and so it's kind of fun to see my friends from around the country, even if it's virtual, just to have a chat though. And I'm glad that things are finally starting to open up around the country as well. So they absolutely are. Again, Ron Ness, North Dakota Petroleum Council, thank you so much for taking your time out with us.
Thanks, Jerry.
Bye-bye.